Hi, this is Anna, and this is Check It at the Round Table, where we discuss movies, books, music, and stuff. Today we are discussing the final episode of Tonhon Chonlatee, episode 10 of the Thai BL drama series. This series has been fraught with many different reasons why I utterly disliked and basically loathed it until episode 9 and 10. Episode 9 and 10 kind of pulled this series out from the dregs and made it halfway enjoyable for the ending. I'm just saying, it really is all about endings. And this episode opens with Tonhon having done the very stupid thing of kissing Amp in a dare, and Chonlatee finding that out via video Amp sends him. He's gone home to his mom's. He's basically written Tonhon off because he told Tonhon that if Tonhon ever was kissing, flirting, doing something with another person, that would be basically the end of it. And Tonhon follows him to his house. He basically hollers up, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that." But Chonlatee won't hear it. Chonlatee is hurt. And the reasons Chonlatee are hurt, I think, are exceptionally valid reasons, as reasons go. He sits there and goes, there's a very poignant scene in this episode where he's talking to Tonhon when they're having an argument, when they finally do sit down and kind of talk about it, because Tonhon ends up in his room and he's trying to talk to him, and he's like, it was better when I liked you secretly than to have you end up kissing another person to satisfy your own ego. And if that's how life is going to be, I don't really want to live my life with someone who isn't going to be just there for me and not, trying to satisfy their own egos with dares or, kissing other people or that kind of thing. And Tonhon realizes at that point that he's really screwed things up with Chonlatee. And Chonlatee's like, I think this is over. This is done because I'm not going to be in a relationship where you're unfaithful to me as a partner. Because if you're not faithful to me, then there's really no point to our relationship. And the one thing I did like about this series, I'm going to go kind of segue back to episode 9. When they do become a couple, they are not calling themselves boyfriend-girlfriend. They're calling themselves basically spouses. And I guess that is actually terminology that is used kind of casually in Thailand when someone's calling themselves husbands and wives. And they're basically saying they're in it for the long haul. This is not like a spring fling or a relationship that isn't going to be just short. And so Tonhon's talking to Chonlatee, Chonlatee's talking to Tonhon, and Chonlatee says, I think we're done. Because if you're not going to be faithful to me, if I have to worry about you kissing someone else, being with someone else, I'm not going to do that with my life. And I'm not going to have you hurt me in that way anymore. And Tonhon looks at me and goes, I'm not going to let you go. And he goes, well, this is over. And Chonlatee walks out, goes to the beach kind of to clear his head, and Tonhon follows him. He says, before this is over, let me just say my piece. And this is, I think, sort of, vaguely, where Tonhon kind of redeems himself, and you think maybe he's not quite the idiot that you always assumed he was. Although that whole massage therapist thing kind of blows this whole theory out of the water in Anna's opinion. And we're going to leave it at that because we want to make this okay for the kiddies. But Tonhon says, you think you're the only one who liked me at the beginning and I didn't like you. But he said, what you don't know is that I've actually liked you for a very long time, since we were kids and you fell off a dock and I saved you. And I knew at that point I liked you. But I also knew at that point that my family thought that I needed to produce an heir. And because of that, our relationship probably wasn't going to be a very viable alternative. Although I will say, I'm going to interject here at this point, I've always found this whole thing very lame as an excuse. And, I'm not trying to be here honest, trying to keep this, okay. But I'm just saying, getting married or being in a relationship simply because you can breed children seems like a really lame reason to be in any endeavor. I'm not trying to be weird, just simply saying, there's got to be more to it than that. And Tonhon's talking to me, he goes, I liked you since I was a kid and that day. But I fought that because I didn't want my family being disappointed that I wasn't going to be birthing them an heir. So yeah, I dated a girl. That fell through. I, left here for 5 years and thought I'd gotten over liking you. And then, lo and behold, everything fell through with my girlfriend because she was a horrible human being. And I ended up back here and I realized that I'd never stopped really liking you. But, you didn't know that because you didn't know what was going on in my head at that time. And Chonlatee is quite taken aback by this. He's sitting there, but he goes, that's all in the past, and you can say anything you want about the past, but we're right here in the present, so what about now? What about what's going on right now, Tonhon? And Tonhon goes, well, right now, I'm going to point one more point to my argument, and then he takes off his shirt, and he's got an anchor on his heart. He goes, the reason I put this anchor here, when you never would get a straight answer from me before, was because my heart is anchored to the sea, and your name means sea, and my name means navigator. Do the math, Chonlatee, basically. Although Tonhon's not that, linear. But anyway, so at that point, Chonlatee sits there and goes, okay, I'm sorry that I kind of put you through the ringer here because I was trying to prove a point. You've made your point. Okay, this is okay. And so at that point, they basically continue on with their relationship. Chonlatee's mom is ecstatic that Tonhon is her new, basically son-in-law, and she's just happy that they're happy and together. And she sends them back with a bunch of dried fish. I'm not sure why, but anyway, it seems like that's something that she likes to make. And then they go home. And, it's kind of like in the stories where, everything's going really well, everything's smooth, and then, yeah. And when they get home, they are greeted by Tonhon has to go see his dad because his dad got pictures from AMP that show Tonhon and Chonlatee together. And they aren't bad pictures. In fact, if I saw those pictures, I probably wouldn't even think maybe that they were a couple. I'd think either they're good friends, maybe brothers, something like that. But Tonhon's dad is on uber alert that his son could be gay. And this, I would like to point out, was never in the original book, according to an excellent YouTuber who wrote a video or made a video on why Chonlatee is different in film than it is in the book and how it really kind of sucks Brooke because of that. And the dad was never homophobic in the book. There was never any, you must produce an heir in the book. And there was no call girl in the book. And I were not ostracized by either Tonhon or any of his family. So and also the almost rape scene involving Chonlatee was never in the book. So I really think GMMTV could have made this a lot better. And so that, I could sit down and watch it with my kids if they would have just left out, all those things I just mentioned. And it really didn't add to the story in many ways. I think it detracted massively from the story. It made you really dislike the character of Tonhon. You think he's a total homophobic jerk. And it really made you see how the devaluing of humanity was not a good thing. But he goes home, talks to his dad. He tells his dad he's not in a relationship with Tonhon. And this is our Chonlatee. And this is where I think this is a really bad move. And the reason I think this is a bad move is if you are in a relationship with someone, it's best not to hide that fact. It's best not to sit there and, pretend that it's not happening. Because number one, that makes the person that you're in a relationship with feel really lame and like they're not enough for you or their family or your family or, whatever. And, I've seen it many, many times in my life. It's like people are secretive about their relationship. It's like, it really is sad to me because if you really do love someone, you should be so ecstatic. And, your family might have problems with it, but eventually they'll get over it. or they won't. And if you really love that person, it probably won't matter to you enough to make you stop loving them. And if it does, you probably need to have that conversation right then and there before you get into a massive life-altering relationship. And I'm only saying that because I grew up in a home where, my parents didn't tell their family that they were together for quite a while. And it caused major trouble. I mean, I remember being a kid and sitting there going, either be completely honest with your family and don't care what they think, or, don't be with the person and then make everybody's lives miserable because the families don't get along, and then that causes all this trouble. But anyway, Tonhon doesn't do that. Tonhon pretends that he's not dating Chonlatee, which is a very bad move. And then they go home to his house where they find out that I and I are a couple, and Miriam was a wannabe call girl but wasn't a call girl, and it completely freaks his dad out. His dad ends up blurting really hateful things toward I and I, trying to drag Tonhon home and telling him he can't ever see Chonlatee again. And Tonhon's like, at that point, Tonhon does break down because he's like, I've had it up to here with elves, and I'm going to just say what's really going on. He says, I'm not leaving here, and I'm not ever leaving Chonlatee. So, we're going to have to deal with this, but Chonlatee and me are not splitting up. This, in turn, makes his dad have a heart attack kind of thing. I think it's actually a stroke. I'm not sure. And mainly because he didn't get his way and he completely lost it. And then they give him a pill. I and I take him to the hospital with basically everyone's in the waiting room of the hospital because the dad lost it at I and I. He lost it at Miriam. He lost it at Tonhon. He lost it at Chonlatee's mom, who finally looked at him and said, you blankety blank human being, get a grip, please, and realize that life is more than just wanting an heir. And she didn't say it as nice as that, but I really love Chonlatee's mom. Out of everyone in the show, Chonlatee's mom is super cool. Also, Ping, Chonlatee's friend, is also up there too. So anyway, they're at the hospital trying to deal with the dad who had the heart attack, actually stroke, and trying to figure out what's going on with him. And Tonhon's mom asks if she can please just speak with Chonlatee's mom. And Tonhon and Chonlatee think that this means that their parents are going to try to break everything up. And Chonlatee goes over to another area. Tonhon follows him, and Tonhon's looking at this little baby in somebody's arms. And Chonlatee looks at him and says, if one of us was a girl, this wouldn't be a problem, but it is, and it's probably going to cause us to break up because your family is going to request something, and that's not going to work with our relationship, but you're not going to be able to let go of your family and all that. And Tonhon looks at him and goes, I'm glad neither one of us is a girl. And Chonlatee looks at him and goes, excuse me? And he says, well, you are you. I like you because you're you. I don't like you because you're a guy. I don't like you because you're a girl. I like you because you're you. And that's not going to change. That's just the way it is. And then they kind of go to segue over to the moms. And Tonhon's mom looks at Chonlatee's mom and goes, this isn't about Tonhon and Chonlatee and the dad having a problem with their relationship because they're homosexual. This is about dad having a problem because he's not having a grandchild. So let's look at it from this point. And Chonlatee's mom's sitting there going, excuse me? I thought this was all about him being upset that Tonhon and Chonlatee. And she says, no, this isn't about Tonhon and Chonlatee. She said, actually, we've known for many years that Tonhon liked Chonlatee. That's why we moved to Bangkok in the hopes that maybe he would not like Chonlatee. And that didn't work out. But that's not really what the problem is. The problem is my husband is convinced he needs a grandchild, and my daughter isn't having children, so he wants our son to have kids. And so Chonlatee's mom goes, well, there are other ways you can have children other than, marrying a woman simply for the sake of bearing heirs. And that's kind of where that sets down. And then they go and see the dad. And the dad basically sits there and says, I want to arrange a meeting so I can apologize to I and I for saying very terrible things to them when I was not at my best. And he said, I also want to sit there and basically apologize to Miriam, who I also shouldn't have said what I said to. And he says, and also for Chonlatee's mom, I need to make sure that we have a really nice Chinese dinner. And that's going to be my apology to you because I really was a dreadful human being for that little bit of time. And then the moms look at each other and say, we have a proposition for you that wouldn't involve Chonlatee and Tonhon being separated, them being miserable because you have to have an heir and Tonhon's, the son. She said, what about surrogacy? What if you considered that as an option? The baby would still be Tonhon's. The baby would still be our grandchild. And in many ways, that might be more practical because that way Tonhon and Chonlatee can stay together, and you can even help pick the mom. And the granddad actually likes this idea. He thinks this is cool. And this is the one thing that I think a lot of BLs are lacking is they're usually just about couples. There's very few I've seen that are about kids. Now, I will say I've seen most of the shows that are BLs from Thailand involve college kids. So, of course, they're not going to be probably having kids when they're in college. That wouldn't be very practical. But, like, the ones about older people, and I don't mean older, I'm just meaning graduated from college or going to graduate from college, there's seldom discussion about children. And I think that's kind of sad, and it's a little closed loop on stuff. But, like, the ones that I like best, like Love Life on the Line, I really liked the mom said, well, there are adoption options. Now, I wish we would have explored that in that series a little more, because I really think that would have been an interesting, not maybe conclusion for the series, but an interesting little segue for the series to show Yuki and the other character maybe possibly adopting a kid. Now, in History 2, Right or Wrong, I think that series did a great job of incorporating children into the relationship and showing how that worked. With this series, I really appreciated that they included, couples having children and how that worked out. In the end of the day, the story is fast-forwarded 3 years. Tonhon and Chonlatee have graduated from college. They are a couple. They are most likely married because they're both wearing wedding bands. And and I are still living in the house, and Miriam is there. And Miriam is the one who decided to be the surrogate. And I think this is absolutely kind of hilarious. She now owns the house. She's been paid a lot of money to have this kid. And you've got Tonhon, you've got Chonlatee, you have Miriam, and you also get kind of a fast forward on what happened to the guy who was going to end up with Chonlatee if he hadn't ended up with Tonhon, and it is very hilarious. I'm not into TikTok. I know a lot of people are. I don't even have the app. I've never used the app. I've just seen people dancing with TikTok, which I'm really not even sure what that's about because, again, I just don't do that. But he ends up meeting this kid on TikTok and they become a couple, and it's kind of funny. But it's basically talking about what had happened in the 3 years. They've become a couple. They're married, Tonhon and Chonlatee. At least we assume so. and I are still a couple. Miriam's still living at the house, and now she's going to have Tonhon's baby, so his dad is not upset that he does not have an heir. And we then go to Tonhon and Chonlatee, and they're sitting on the same wooden bridge out into the ocean that they were when Tonhon realized that he liked Chonlatee as kids. And they're basically just talking about how life is and how they're going to continue to be there for one another. I really like this conversation. I really thought it was well done. And I really liked that at the end of it, it's like, it's not the end of a story. We're just continuing the story. We're moving forward with our lives. And how does that look? I really do have to say, episodes 9 and episode 10, I really enjoyed of this series. Every other episode of this series, I absolutely loathed. It was really hard for me to finish the review of this series because I almost quit the series before the end, simply because it was really quite dreadful, in my personal opinion. I mean, I'm not a particular fan of GMM TV. I believe they're the ones that are doing the new one that's called like 1,000 Stars, and I'm really hoping that one is much better than this series. But in complete honesty, I probably wouldn't watch any episodes of these again except episode 9 and episode 10. And I can honestly say I really enjoyed episode 9, so much so that I actually watched it 3 times. I watched it when it premiered on Friday last. It's English subs. I watched it when I watched it, a little later, and then I watched it again so I could just sit down and watch the whole thing without having it broken up. And I really have to say, episode 9 was really cool. Episode 10 was great. And I think the main reason is the characters finally said what they wanted to say. They actually committed to something rather than just kind of walking around the topics. And I really like the development. I like that Tonhon wasn't quite as big a jerk as you wanted to think he was. Although, in my opinion, he's still a major jerk, mainly because of the massage therapist scene. Okay, I'm just saying that really, that's ingrained on my memory lobes. But at the end of the day, I probably would give the series overall a really low number. I mean, if I had to rate the series, I probably wouldn't even rate it because it's so lame-o in like 8 episodes out of 10. Episode 9, if I just picked that episode out of the entire series, I would give that a whopping 10. Episode 10, I would definitely give a whopping 10 because they were really interesting episodes. They moved well. They had good storyline and structure. I will say episode 10 was a little annoying because you're going, if the dad just wanted an heir and didn't really care if his son was with Chonlatee, then why make this big honking fuss about everything when, there are other options than, marrying a girl just so that you can have a grandbaby. I mean, I don't mean red, it just seems kind of lame-o. But anyway, so I would give episode 10 an absolute thumbs up 10 out of numbers. But again, this episode you could watch with kids, no problem. Now you might have to discuss what is surrogacy, what does that mean, and that could be a little confusing for some kids, but most would probably get that pretty quickly, and you wouldn't have to go into great detail. You could just, explain basics, and it might be a good little lesson on that subject. And episode 9, I probably would maybe not watch with the kids because there are a couple scenes involving romantical moments. But again, it wasn't really over the top. So, use your judgment. I wouldn't probably, even have to probably fast forward through most of that. And then the rest of this is not kid-friendly. Episode 1 through 8 would not watch with kids, would not even probably watch with teenagers, just because I don't like the message that it sends out to people. I don't like, the lack of care shown in that episodes. And if I was going to rewatch a series, I can honestly say I wouldn't rewatch Tonhon. I probably will rewatch episode 9 and 10 simply because I really like those episodes. They're probably going to go on a special little watch list on my YouTube channel. But overall, I would not watch this again. It's kind of like, why are you? I really like the characters of Tutor and Fighter, but that whole series was one long, big drag. And I don't mean it bad, but really, it dragged on. And it had really weird segues. And we had Sai and Zahn, and they were a really weird couple. But anyway, so this is one of those I would not rewatch, but I would definitely rewatch individual episodes of 9 and 10 again, totally. And that is my review of Tonhon Chonlatee episode 10, peeps. Bye!